Welcome to Surviving the Dream with your hosts, Casey Arnold
and David Conley.
We're here to talk to people who seem to have their dream job and find out, what did it take? Is it what they imagined? Is it worth it? How do they do it?
Join us as we uncover the secrets of surviving the dream.
Hi, Dave.
Hi, Casey. How are you?
I'm good. I'm extra excited for our guest today because, as you know, and our audience will now know, it's our second time trying to do this because technology was not on our side before.
I think this was the best interview that no one ever heard.
100%.
It was fantastic. Honestly, audience, I hope we get there again. But I honestly did learn so much.
Yeah. Our guest is fascinating and amazing, and Wi-Fi kept pausing it. And so we're going to try and ask a lot of the same questions. But if it sounds like we're, I don't know, asking things we may or may not vaguely remember why, we still want you to hear all the fun stuff we heard. So some of it might be things we've asked and we know, and some of it, well, I doubt it will be because we're not going to have exactly the same conversation.
No. And that conversation, I mean, like, if you ever get a chance to ask us personally, we'll tell you all about it.
But it was life-changing.
It was life-changing, but technology beat us on the day. You know, that's the overriding thing I learned. I can survive a dream, but I can't survive technology.
I would go with that. I would say a lot of the times, like you ever write something amazing and then you hit the wrong button somehow and it's deleted and there is no way to undo?
That's every joke and every script I've ever written. Obviously, the best stuff.
That explains it.
No one's ever seen the best stuff. And it's always the night you do your best take and they say, oh, I'm sorry, there was a hair in the gate.
Yeah. Or you're like, oh, shit, I forgot to hit record.
Oh, dear, I forgot something. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's make good on it now.
Yeah.
She's kind enough to give us her time again.
Thank you.
She has more certifications than anyone I think I've ever met, which I don't know, might not be saying that much since I work in comedy, but she is amazing. I have mad respect for what she does. Let's get everyone a better understanding of what it is she does do. Please welcome flight nurse and extraordinary human, Sasha White. Hello.
Oh, thanks, guys. What a great intro.
Now that we got a little taste before, we're like, oh my God, we get more. This is amazing.
You have the advantage is that we now know you better than we've known any other previous guest, possibly. So you deserve that intro because we were fascinated last time we spoke. Tell us exactly what you do so that the audience knows. I know what you do, actually. I could tell you, but you tell us now for the audience.
Do we want to start with what she does first or what her dream? Start with what you do and then tell us how you got there, because I know it was an unlikely...
That's a different question, Casey. Let's find out what
I'm going to let her ask two things at once.
And then we'll ask a follow-up question, like, how did you get there? All right. Well, come on, Sasha. Tell us what you do.
Don't mansplain me.
Okay. So I'm a flight nurse on a helicopter. I can go toggle back and forth. We're nationwide between fixed wing or helicopters. And I never know what my day is going to be like. We do scene runs, so it could be a car accident or any other kind of traumatic injury or medical emergency. And or we do interfacility transports, ER to ER, ICU to ICU, ER to cath lab, you name it. I never know what my day is going to be like.
So you show up to work and all you know is you're going to show up for some traumatic life event in someone else's life and hopefully change the course in a positive way.
Yes. I always try to keep in mind that when that person put their pants leg on that day, I'm sure they were not anticipating being ejected out of a vehicle on a rollover or something.
Yeah.
Yikes.
I do wonder about that. I was actually thinking that yesterday, going, is this the day? You brought that up. I think it's because I saw 2 accidents on the way to work yesterday, and I was thinking, ooh, this is not great, is it?
So that brings up a good question. Because you've seen the aftermath of so many, do you feel like when you're out in the world, are you like, oh, that could lead to that could lead to that? Is your lens on life different of like what could lead to a disaster?
Oh, yes. I think we all from doing this, have some form of PTSD, especially vehicles. My husband will be driving and I'm like, brake, brake, brake. We're in no danger, but in my head, I'm screaming. He's like, I see your foot over there tapping on the floor.
Let's go back to Casey's question about like this is your dream. This is your dream to go out and save people. Right.
And how did you know this was a thing? And what does it take to become a person who's like smart and savvy enough to show up and save the day?
It takes a lot of studying, keeping up with a lot of certifications. I initially, my first former life was in finance. And then I had two girls that were my friends that were nurse anesthetists, and they just intubated and worked 24-hour shifts. And then they had the rest of the week off to play. And I thought that was so cool. So now I can do two 24-hour shifts and I have the rest of the week off if I choose to play, or I can pick up anywhere that has an open spot.
So really, it's about the time off. It's not about saving lives at all. I've seen through you second time round, Sasha. I now understand. That's what it was about.
You have to take very good care of yourself. You have to have a proper work-life balance in this industry, for sure.
And what do you do to keep yourself balanced when your work days are so intense?
A lot of humor. I feel like we are all morbid on some level. You just have to. And we have a lot of dark humor just between the crews, obviously not in front of a patient, or it's just what you do as a coping mechanism. You'll laugh at inappropriate things. That all of our family members, I'm sure, do not like us speaking at the dinner table. They're like, nope, stop telling that story. Stop. Everyone's eating. Like, we think nothing of it. But you have a good work-life balance. You know, at the base, we make dinners together. Everyone has their own bedroom. We have showers. We have a gym. You know, they try to normalize it because it's a 24-hour shift as much as possible. It's your home away from home.
Bringing back to that humor thing, I mean, that kind of fascinates me. I mean, I remember the one time that I went to an ER in America, and it sounded to me like a Victorian torture chamber with all the screams and the noises and all. And yet, at the desk, there was a bunch of doctors sharing a joke, and I went, "How can you do this?" And I thought, and I was talking to a doctor friend. He said, "Well, of course, you've got to survive somehow." But for me, it was like the most horrific day of my life, and the most horrific days, it seems like, of everybody around them. But they're just going, "Oh yeah," and then you'll never believe what the Englishman said. So how does that get you? Is it like gallows humor?
It definitely is a lot like that, I would suppose. You just have to tune out stuff because you are seeing and hearing the most horrific things. So then when you do have a light moment and you can joke about something, you know, when you're not with the patient, then we all take the opportunity to cut up and do it. Again, I think it's just a coping mechanism because when you're working on somebody and like, if it's a child and the parent standing next to you screaming, like, save my child, you have to tune that out. You have to be able to compartmentalize just like a pilot would and stop paying attention to what's going on around you, and just your training kicks in. You don't think of anything else that's going on around you.
So what kind of training do you have to be, if you don't know what you're heading to, like how are you prepared for whatever you get to?
So it's actually an interesting question. They don't tell us before we lift because they don't want you to know what your call will be, because they don't want you to turn it down or it to impede or speed up. You're skipping a safety step doing your walk around the helicopter or something because you know it's, you know, something terrible and you need to get there faster. So once we lift, then we find out in the air, our communications will tell us this is what you're going to. And so your brain just starts, it's kind of like an open book in your head, and you start flipping through pages really rapidly, going, okay, you know, if this is a child, everything's weight-based. If it's an adult, if it's a neuro patient, you know, there's different drugs you would use.
I remember last time you were telling us how, like, you have to be prepared enough to potentially, like, birth a child or like save someone who's in like cardiac arrest or save a limb, and like everything in between. Like, how can you possibly be prepared for that many different scenarios? And thank you for being prepared for that many different scenarios.
Those calls literally can be back to back.
Wow.
Our training, they put us through rigorous training every year. Throughout each quarter, we have a bunch of training, and then we have to go to essentially like a home office type thing, and they grade you and they prepare you. You don't know what your scenario is until you're walking in on it, and they're watching you through a one-way mirror to see how you're reacting and what you're doing and your reaction times, and are you doing things correctly. It's a lot of training and studying. So if you don't like to study, it's definitely not the the thing, but you have to keep up on everything because you literally use everything you learn.
I would ask how many years of training?
I have over 13 in the ICU and ER. Prior to that, I was at EMT, and then, the nursing world. Then I went into the flight world. I flew at another program that was hospital-based in North Carolina prior to coming to Georgia. And now I'm at a community-based that's nationwide.
And to add to this job, you've also got to get inside a helicopter every day as well, on the 24 hours that you're working. I mean, that must be an added thing. I've only been in a helicopter twice in my life. And I remember both times thinking, I was always told these are the most dangerous things you can ever do is get in a helicopter. How do you feel about that? How do you prepare? Or do you just shut that out? Or do you enjoy it? Do you go, oh, this is great, I'm in a helicopter?
It is a realization that we all know that when we take off, we may not be coming back. Everyone realizes that when you get in.
Oh my God.
That's why it's very important when we do our walk-arounds and our safety checks. We check in with each other because it's the crew members. There's 3 of us. There's a pilot, a nurse, and a paramedic on board. And then you have a patient. So we are always doing safety checks, any kind of lights that come up. I mean, we don't mess around with that at all, just because that could be our lives.
So let me get this right. So you're thinking of your own mortality every time you go to work.
You acknowledge it, but it's not something we dwell on, if that makes sense. I mean, you are thinking about it in the sense of when I am walking around this helicopter, checking it off in the morning, when I'm doing my walk around before I get in it each time, I make sure that every latch is closed, all the doors are shut, there's no belts hanging out, nothing that could hurt us, that I could prevent anyway.
I see. So the idea is like, I might die, but as long as it's not my fault.
That sounded horrible.
No.
You can only control so much, right?
I think that's a really interesting way of looking at it. Go, well, I did everything I could.
That sounded horrible. Each one of us share that responsibility.
Right. So if you've got several people going, if they looked after that and I look after my bit, we should be covered. Hopefully we'll get to 100%.
It's easy to do when you have been flying all day and you get that call at 3 a.m. and they're dragging you out of bed to go on this. It's easy to be like, oh, I didn't see that belt hanging out. So we are very cautious with that.
So let me get this right as well, because it's presumably you're getting into a helicopter because you've got to get somewhere fast and you've got to get somewhere where you probably might want to. It's going to be faster, but there's got to be you've got to somehow slow yourself down as well to make sure you're making those checks. Because the instinct must be, oh, get into the helicopter and get going. There's someone. Well, we don't actually. It sounds like you don't know where you're going, but you've got to take your time to get that bit right.
Oh, absolutely. The more horrific an injury is, or the sicker the patient, you actually need to slow down. You need to make sure all your drips are correct and you're giving the correct drugs and the dosages. And sometimes that is seen when you're working with first responders. That's one of the first things we have to do is slow it down a little bit because they're like, let's get into the helicopter. And I'm like, no, we're going to get to the helicopter, but in a second. We're going to take our time, do everything correct.
This sounds a little bit like the chef we were interviewing the other week, though. He was telling us that he was working on a boat and he had to have everything ready before he left the harbour. Is it like that with a helicopter? You must have to have everything ready before you go. Like, you can't get to the scene and go, oh, did anyone bring the sailing? Oh, no.
That would be a bad day. Yes, you do your checkoffs first thing when you get in. That is the first thing we do is we do a checkoff. And then after we do a call, if we go back to base, we are making sure that, we're cross-checking with each other. Like, what supplies do we need to restock? What do we need here? Mm-hmm. So that way you do have everything, because you don't want to get there and say the most crucial thing we need, we forgot.
Mm-hmm. Is it the same, like, big bag of supplies that you bring to everything that gets you from A to B? Like, presumably you're bringing them to a hospital, so it just needs to get them so far. Or do you ever have to do like a full procedure?
Yes, unless if it's a specialty transport, like a balloon pump or something like that, where it's a very cardiac natured call, then we'll have to bring in extra equipment. But everything else is pretty standard. All the blood, drugs we take to every single call, because again, we don't know what we're going to, and we don't know if we're even going to get back to base. We might go for one call, drop off that patient and go straight to another call and not get back to base for like another 3 calls.
What's the longest time you've been away from the base?
Probably a good 6 or 7 hours. So we have everything there, so we can go do a couple calls in a row. If we need to do equipment, we just tell Aircom we have to turn down that call because we need to go back and restock.
Right.
Sounds like communication is almost as important in your job as anything else is.
100%.
I presume I'm going to equate it to being a comedian because that's what I know. Where you have the adrenaline on the way to the show or walking up to the stage. I presume that are you in the air going, right, now we're going into this. There's certain expectations. There's the post bit where you've got the patient in the helicopter. And then there's another part, I presume, of this, and is that you're then saying goodbye to the patient. You're now somebody else's problem.
Yes.
Have I got that process right?
That is.
Am I essentially a qualified flight nurse now?
I think you were definitely. Come
Pretty
along
much
with
there,
us.
right? Yeah, I'll see you Tuesday. Could you talk us through that process from your perspective, not from my comedic perspective?
Like, I think when you're going to the call, there is some level of anxiety in everybody, whether it's, drugs. I'm trying to calculate drugs off of a weight or whatever it is you're doing. And then you get there and assess the patient. I feel like that's when everybody's anxiety kind of, at least on our side, comes down because what we're told sometimes is not what we're given. And sometimes it's for the better and sometimes it's for the worse. So if we think, this call came out and it sounded worse than what it actually was when we got there, that's kind of like, you take a sigh of relief. You're like, okay, we can still work with this. And then at other times you're like, whoa, we're behind the 8 ball. Let's, we kind of have to do a couple things extra that we weren't anticipating.
Do you get have you ever had a patient, this is like a movie kind of thing where a patient said, thank you for saving my life, and years later you've known that person is still on the planet because of you?
Yes. Quite frequently, family members will bring the patient back or bring them to base to come see the helicopter.
Wow.
Usually the family member does not remember. If they were, unconscious and we had to intubate and sedate them, meaning giving them a breathing tube and putting them on a ventilator, they won't remember any of it. And I consider my job done then because I will have given lots of drugs to keep them asleep. You shouldn't remember me. If you know my face, there's something wrong.
Yeah. I've had shows like that. My job is done. They all fell asleep. Yeah.
Yeah. Others that, weren't seriously injured, but they were injured enough that they still need a helicopter and they were awake and coherent, they would still come back and talk to you and say thank you and want to see everything again because now they're not hurting and they want to take around and look like this is where I laid. I remember that monitor there or something.
Yeah, like piece together what happened.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this. Would you consider this your dream job now?
Now, yes.
There was a pause there. Now, yes. Maybe there was a time I wouldn't. But
when you're going through the training there, it's pretty daunting. Mm-hmm. And we all feel like we have an imposter syndrome. Like, oh, yes, you've been trained on it, but can you really do it? Mm-hmm. And then you start thinking that. But then once you have a couple, 100 calls under your belt, you're like, I've been doing it. Of course I can do it.
That's hilarious. It's just like being a comedian, 100 mics and you're good, right?
Yeah.
You're always learning from somebody. I always work with somebody that is teaching me something, or I'm like, I will never do it that way. Or, I'm going to take that from you and I'm going to do it this way now. Or
how does the reality of it compare to your expectations of what you thought it would be like?
In the summer, you're like a wet poodle.
Explain.
The winter, and you smell like a barnyard animal.
Again, explain.
And then in the winter, you're a frozen popsicle. Everyone thinks the flight suits are so cool, and I'm like, they are so hot in the summer and freezing in the winter.
Oh, really? And you're based in Georgia, is that right?
Oh, yes.
And is that, I don't know Georgia that well, but I presume I've seen films about it. It's quite hot and humid there, right?
Oh, yes.
Oh, got that right. So, and how heavy is this suit? I presume it gets heavier throughout the day as well.
It's not terribly heavy. All the stuff that we carry on us in your pockets, like drug guides and scissors and stuff like that, it starts to weigh it down and starts sticking to you when you're super hot. We do have air conditioning and heating in the helicopter, but when you're in and out and in and out.
Yeah. Oh, that's a nightmare as well. If because an accident can happen any time of the day, of course. I mean, like it could be in the heat of the day. That must be horrific.
Oh, yes. You're standing, you don't realize how hot asphalt is until it's radiating heat off of you while you're waiting for the fire department to cut them out of the car for you. It's so hot. Or cold, depending on the time of year.
And so what do you do to like take care of yourself to make sure you are taken care of enough to be able to show up for the other people? Because like you said, it might be 3 a.m. and then you're out for 6 hours. If you're like, you haven't slept enough, you haven't eaten, it's a bajillion degrees. Like how do you guys make sure that you're taken care of too?
We hydrate very well. We have lots of pocket snacks, we call them. We eat. If you're hungry, eat. If you are tired, sleep. Because you don't know when your break is going to be. It's not like they say, okay, scheduled nap time, and the bell goes off.
Can you do that? Are you good at saying, "Oh, I'm just going to sleep now"? I mean, I'm not brilliant at that. When knowing, I better get a kip in now. I'll be like, oh no, but I'm wired now. How do you do that?
I think it's conditioning over time. And we've all kind of taught ourselves how to do it. I'm a horrible day sleeper, but let me tell you, when I'm at work, I can take a nap during the daytime. Luckily, our bedrooms we have blackout curtains, and they keep it nice and cool. So it's easy to sleep.
Oh, so at work, they've actually got the bed there for you?
Oh, yes. You have your own bedroom.
I think every job should have that.
How do you keep your body on any kind of regular schedule if you're on like a 2-day crazy shift like that where things can happen at any moment, and then you have downtime in your regular life where I'm assuming you try and keep yourself on a more traditional schedule, but maybe you don't?
I'm a day kid. I want to stay awake all day and then sleep at night.
See, that's sunshine.
So what do you do with the rest of your time if you're working for 24-hour shift? That leaves you quite a few hours for the rest of the week. What are you doing with those days?
When I'm off?
Yeah.
Oh, if my husband's home, we're flying around somewhere.
I hope you're not flying. I hope you're not flying on your day off.
He's a pilot, remember?
Oh, he's a pilot?
He is.
Oh, so you are literally flying. Oh, okay. All right.
So we live in a fly-in community. So we don't even have to get in the car. We just get in the airplane.
Wait, what's a flying community? That's a thing?
So we have a runway in the middle of our neighborhood, and there's about 130 houses. And so you just take off and you fly to another airport and go to lunch and come home. Like the other day, he surprised me coming in when we were coming back from a call. He was bringing dinner behind us. I heard him on the radio, and then my pilot's like, I think that's your husband. I was like, oh my dinner.
God. You have the coolest sounding life. I can't believe you ever explained yourself as a plain Jane.
She's a plain Jane. She's on the plane all the time. Yeah. So I'm now fascinated by this lifestyle that you have. Do you even have a car, or is that just to drive you to the plane?
I do have a car. I don't like riding in it.
So, what are you? I mean, so you live in an area of the country where it's quicker to fly anywhere else than drive anywhere.
What's the furthest you guys have ever gone for like a meal? You fly internationally ever, or you keep it in the States? No. I'm now writing a movie in my head. Yeah.
You fancy Paris for dinner, darling?
Oh no, we stay local. I mean, we have places that are less than like 8 minutes from here that we all usually fly to for lunch, or we go to Alabama, and that's like a 45-minute flight. It's not too far, usually an hour.
How far are you flying in 8 minutes?
If it's 15 miles from here, I've never driven it. So
this has taken a new tangent from the last time we spoke, because I've now found out something completely new, that you literally are. Do you own a plane?
We own 2. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. You own 2 planes.
His and hers?
No, he does all of the flying. I point to the map and say, let's go here.
How big are these planes that you own?
Oh, small. One is a 2-seater and one's a 4-seater.
Oh, just a 4-seater plane.
There's enough room for us, Dave. I say we go visit. We invite ourselves. Wait, do you have a go bag that you bring with you for your personal flights too, like just in case? Or are you not thinking about that when you're flying for fun?
No. I've just made our peace with it.
That's amazing that you can turn it off that well. Like you're in one and then you leave work and you're off.
Yeah. I don't care about the belt hanging out on the plane. I'm not looking at that.
It's his job. He's the pilot.
We still do a walk around and check things. And when I'm inside, I'm monitoring engines. I set up my screen to kind of mimic his. There's different things I like to look at than him, but I'm trained to watch for airplanes outside. So there's still a lot of safety involved, but definitely nothing like work.
Wow.
This is fascinating.
What an extraordinary life that you have, really. I love that. Oh, yeah. What do you fancy for lunch? Alabama, if you wouldn't mind.
I want to mention what Alabama's specialty is, but I have no idea. What are they known for?
It's just a local place it's in Eufaula that we go. It isn't anything crazy, and I don't know what they're even known for down there.
Well, I'll pop over next time I get the plane out.
Come on!
So,
we would love it.
If your dream job is this high intense life or death thing and you are able to fully turn it off, like how long, I guess, is the dream measuring up? And like, how long do you think you'll do this?
That is a constant conversation. Did you have a conversation with my husband prior to this? He's always asking, how much longer can your body hold out?
He's on the other line. We'll get in there. We're getting there.
He's busy getting us lunch.
Yeah.
As long as feasibly possible. I don't know. The longevity. I've had friends that have gone all the way up to retirement and did fine and did it over 20 years. And then other people, are like, gosh, my back gave out or this or that gave out.
Is there a specific age out? I remember Erica, our pilot, told us that I think she said it was 65. Like, that's it. They're done. Do you guys have a specific age that you're done at?
It is for pilots 65. Same with our pilots at work. We do not have one for us. I would say that they would probably start questioning when you couldn't pass exams or pass our checkoffs. If they saw cognitive decline, they'd probably be like, okay, maybe it's time for you to hang it up. I think the crews would tell you before. Your partner would be like, you're done.
I'd like to know who's the oldest flight nurse. I want to know what the record is now.
Oh, that's a good
Some
question.
86-year-old flight nurse comes to me.
That's a good question.
Yeah. Can we find that one out? Yeah. I was going to say, what would the 16-year-old Sasha think of Sasha now, do you think?
That she's crazy. Never. Are you like, you're doing what?
Yeah. How did you get from finance to flight nurse? Like, what was that switch? It was just hearing that your friends had time off?
Exactly. Because I was living out of a suitcase and I never had the work-life balance was not there. I did not get to see my friends. It sounded glamorous, being in LA for dinner and New York for breakfast, but it really wasn't because, I was always gone. So now I see friends.
So you have the work-life balance now from doing this incredible job.
Oh, yes. You can push and pull as much as you want to work and then take time off. Like we're getting ready to go airplane camping at the end of September.
I'm sorry, what?
What's airplane camping? Oh my God, I'm so glad we did this a second time. We get to hear about your fascinating life and not only your fascinating job.
We're going airplane camping.
We're in a literal tent. We do pack it. He does all the weight and balance, and I only have one bag I'm allowed to bring. But it's
on an airplane.
It's in South Carolina. Our tent is right underneath our wing, or we're next to our wing.
Amazing. So there's also a community where like the airstrips have like campgrounds, and you fly where you want, and then you stay in a tent.
Oh yes, there are thousands of people that go.
There's a whole society out there, Casey, that we're not part of.
Very much. So wow.
We'd love to bring you along. Come on.
My writer brain is going bananas right now. Dave, are you like spinning stories of things that could happen? It's like, a whole new world.
There's a whole world out there that people go to airplane camp. Yeah. Wow.
What would 16-year-old Sasha think of that?
I don't think I would have thought it was even true because I didn't grow up like that or hear about anything of the sort. So I was like, what do you mean? And doing poker runs. That was all new to me.
Poker runs.
What's a poker run?
Where you get in the airplane and you fly to designated airports and people hand you cards and you get back and you have a hand and you see who won.
Oh my God. Oh. We are missing out on life.
Wow, this is a whole alternative lifestyle that I knew nothing about. poker runs, air camp. I thought we were going to talk about, like, last time it was like legs falling off and all that kind of stuff.
We can talk about that too. I'm very eclectic.
You have really mastered like decompressing after like high intensity craziness, like your regular life. Although even your regular life, I hesitate to call a regular life.
It's a most irregular life, I think. Yeah, incredible.
Amazingly so. Okay, so what? God, I don't even like know what to ask now.
Well, that's your job, Casey. She's flying all the time. All we've got to do is ask questions, and you're going, "Oh, I don't know what to ask." We can't say it. I'd be like Sasha turning up, going, "Oh, legs falling off. I don't know what to do now."
Well, that's why she's up in the air. I mean, she sounds like a fucking badass. But if I got up there, I'd be like, "Oh my god, there's so much blood and screaming. I can't. I'm hungry. I'm a little hangry. I can't do it." Are all of your friends part of this community? Because I feel like even trying to lead any kind of civilian life would probably be challenging for you. Or do you have days where you're like, yeah, let's get up and do yoga together, and then I'll meet you for some normal activity in the day and do our taxes and whatever boring ass shit.
Do you have airplane yoga? That's what Casey's asking.
Oh my God.
There's a group in the neighborhood. Some of the girls went to goat yoga. I had to work, so I was very bummed I missed out on that.
I love goat yoga. Do like a bit of goat yoga.
I want to go so bad.
We live in LA, so that one we know about.
Yeah. We all do go. Yeah. Did it this morning. Yeah. I raise you a goat. You give me your airplane. Yeah.
No, I live with a lot of pilots that live in the neighborhood, obviously, and mechanics. I mean, there's all sorts of people that live here. So we do, normal things, dinners, and
but in different states.
Right, your dinner party is like, whose plane are we taking?
Well, usually at dinner, you have to think who's coming, because that will limit the topics you can speak about. Some people can't hear about blood. Some people, but if you ask me about my day, there's no telling what you're going to get out of me.
See, the gallows humor, you do well with comedians, because we like to talk about the inappropriate stuff. Were you already with your husband when you became a flight nurse? Because I would imagine doing what you do for a living would eliminate a certain amount of potential partners.
I was in the ICU. I was in the hospital working when I was with him, and then he knew I wanted to go into flight, and he said, "Okay, if you want to." I mean, he's very supportive and said, try it out and see if you like it. If not, you always know you can go back to the ICU, but I love the autonomy. I have to answer to medical directors, as well, but that comes back to your training. Just as long as you can explain yourself and what you did in the care and it didn't hurt the patient, you're usually always in the right and okay.
Has there been occasions where, because we hear about this all the time with helicopters, where they go, there's an accident, but we can't send you up, or we've got to turn you around for your own safety? Does that happen?
Weather will turn us around in a heartbeat. And that is usually it. Unless if the patient dies and they'll tell us in route, just never mind, go back to base. But it's usually weather. We'll go up and take a look at it. If we think we can get there, we will not push weather, because that's very serious and has led to a lot of catastrophic events.
Have you been in situations where you thought, we're pushing this? Where
there was unforecasted weather. Yeah. We've had that, and we had to land on an alternate hospital's helipad. Thankfully, we radioed them, and they graciously took us and said, "Come downstairs, we'll take the patient."
Wow.
Once we explained what happened. But it was unforecasted, and it was a wall right when we got there. We're like, oh boy, we're not getting across that.
It was a wall, or it was a wall of...
So a wall of weather.
You built that wall.
There's things you do not play around with, and weather is one of them.
Is there anything that scares you at this point?
No, I can't.
God damn, you're a badass.
There's so many redundant systems on the helicopter and the airplanes that there's fail safes, and we might get a chip light and it might mean something different. One is land as soon as possible. One is land immediately. And luckily, we have a glide slope and we can get places. So, I haven't been in that situation, knock on wood, somewhere where anything has been crazy. And if we lost an engine, that would get your attention.
Yeah.
I'll talk about being able to auto rotate down to the ground, but it's still going to be a hard landing.
Casey, you wanted to start us off with questions?
Sure. I'm going to ask my super important question that I always ask, but this time, usually I just ask what your favorite snack is, but I want to know, like, what are your pocket snacks? Because that's got to last for a long time and be good at any weird hour for after however long. What do you keep in there?
Pretzels, chips, gum, cookies. Even if it's
that was cookies. I think it was cookies.
Even if it's melted chocolate, we don't care. We'll eat it. We're not picky at 2 a.m.
All right. I want to know, if you won the lottery, the big one, what are you going to do?
I would probably travel farther, get a different plane.
Do you ever fly commercial, or is it pretty much only with your husband?
Oh, I dread it. I don't want to people.
So does
I don't want to people.
Sorry, you dread it because why?
We don't want to people.
Oh.
We do fly commercial when it's long distance, yes.
Oh, that's so good of you, Sasha.
But it's when you can just go out your back door and get into your own airplane versus going through security.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to look into it after this podcast. I think Casey and myself might get one for the podcast. We'll put it on the podcast expenses.
Yeah. We will
be
surviving the dream in our airplane. That would be some pretty sweet airplane art.
Yeah. We could probably have one of those things that's how we'll make money. Is
a Skywriter?
We'll do one of those.
Wait, do people name their planes like they name their boats? Do you have a fun name for your plane?
Oh, yes.
What is it? Can we ask?
One of them, her name is Charlie.
Wow.
I love boy names for girls. I don't know why.
It's a cocaine plane. Okay.
Charlie. She's red.
The Charlie's on the way. Oh, thank God for that. There's rock bands all over the world going, here comes Charlie. All right, Casey.
If we didn't know you, what would we know about you?
What wouldn't you know about me?
I fucked up my own question because I have so many things I want to ask you and I'm watching the clock. If we really knew you, what would we know about you? Thank you for making me re-ask that.
No, that's okay. You would know we were married before we actually had our wedding. Our guests didn't know.
How far before you got married, before your wedding, were you married?
6 or 7 months. Sorry, family and friends.
Wow.
Oh. Why the delay?
Our tax guy said, hey, you guys are buying a house. I'm not trying to get in your business, but, it might behoove you to get married the same year. So we did that. But our wedding wasn't scheduled for another 6 or 7 months. And we were like, all right, let's just go.
Wow.
I love it.
Taxes. That's what it all comes down to.
Always, right?
Always. Right. Yeah. Do you want to be married? Me? Not sure. It'd be good on our tax return. Okay.
Yep.
Wow. All right. I want to know, what is your favorite animal and why?
I love all the animals. I tell my husband all the time, outside are nature's free animals. I feed all the squirrels and chipmunks and birds to keep them away from the house and the hangar. And I used to feed little birds next to the house. He's like, I saw your pile of food out there. Go out into the woods. I would love a possum, a raccoon, anything I could find that would come hang out.
Possum and a raccoon. That's nice. I like that. I like those creatures.
I'm writing a cartoon in my head, a possum and a raccoon who live on an airstrip and fly off on adventures.
Yeah, selling cocaine in Charlie plane. Yeah. Now I know what you meant at the start when we spent a lot of time getting all the drugs right for the ride. Different meaning now, isn't it, Sasha? Right. Okay.
This has been so good, except for the terrible Wi-Fi.
They're like, you're a glorified drug dealer. I'm like, I guess I kind of am in a way.
Yeah. You are.
And we thank you for it.
Yeah, thank you. It's much needed. Yeah.
Sasha, you're amazing. Thank you for giving us a second chance at doing this. And I'm excited we learned a lot of new stuff.
Yeah, thank you for doing what you do so that other people can survive in life.
Yeah.
We appreciate that.
Thanks, guys, for having me. Make it very easy.
Yeah, you're a real hero. We appreciate you. And
it's a great effort.
Yeah, keep surviving that dream. I want you to be the longest living flight nurse. All right, let's break that. We'll find out what the record is. I want you to break it, Sasha.
I have to look this up now.
And if you enjoy our podcast, please like, subscribe, share, and do all of that good stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Sasha.
Well, thanks for having me.
Quick shout out to Mike Nicholas for being our tech savior, and Carmen Sclafani, also known as Wiser Time. Thanks for our music. And thank you all for listening.